Go ahead, Stu.
Oh, well, I said I was going to take the introduction. That was not very smooth. Let me try that again. Welcome to the show, everyone. Much better, right? Sorry about that. This is Morning Bytes with Stu, Violet, and Jason, but Jason's not here, so we're going to have to do the best we can without him. This is the show where we have 30 minutes to talk about the most important issues, or basically just the things that we are following these days in cybersecurity, data privacy, whatever topics were happening right now. Few reminders and house rules. The views and opinions expressed by the guests on this show are solely our own. They are not the opinions of our respective employers whatsoever. We only have 30 minutes, so we're going to try to move quickly through the stories that we chose for talk about today. We're not here for sales. We're not going to pitch to anything. We're just talking about what's in the news. So this used to be an audio show. We moved it on to video. We used to bring up guests. We're not really able to do that anymore. So just roll with the punches. We're going to have a good time. So with us today, in lieu of our friend Jason, who is vacationing right now, which we admire, we have Tammy Kay. You want to do a quick introduction, Tammy?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I know a lot of you probably on the call, but I'm a 20-year industry veteran in insurance, particularly cyber, but beyond that, technology and all the rest of the things. As champion of the industry, I protect and develop products and underwrite some of the biggest and largest companies across the U.S., and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Awesome, Tammy. Thanks and welcome to the show. And a very old friend of mine, dear friend of mine, we worked together in numerous capacities, but I'm so excited he finally joined us here on Morning Bytes. Steve Boyce, please do a quick introduction.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Steve Boyce, director at Magnet Forensics, longtime passionate lover and member of the industry, if you will. And yeah, really looking forward
to it.
Stop there, right?
That's all I heard.
How do we top that? I mean, I'm glad I went first.
Mic drop. There you go. But it's noon here, so it's like afternoon bites, if you will. But anyway, really looking forward to sharing kind of all the gems coming out of NetD. It was good to see you, Stu, and others this past week. So
awesome. Well, we have a great show for you today, and we really look forward to getting into it. So let's do it. Violet, just to refresh, get us off the ground, warm up, what is the story that you've been following this week?
Well, I actually missed NetD. So my story is I want to hear more information and things that happened at NetD. But if you actually want a news story for me to jump in, I have had a hard time today deciding between the hacker that threw up a deep fake nude site with a link to malware on it. That was my first pick. Because that's just gross, but also goes with my prediction that I've had an AI for a long time, that it's going to disproportionately hurt women. And really just because what we've seen with the porn industry, I feel like I get into this stuff every time. I'm not obsessed with this type of product, but I do think that if you think about our theme today is going to seem like criminal activity. And if you just track criminal activity in general, that this going towards that sexual misconduct activity is only going to fuel the criminal fire. If there's going to be more money and more lucrative, and it's going to be easier to catch people through this. And the example of this article that's up is that there was and I'm trying to think of like the actual names, hacker group named, Fin7. So Fin7 is the hacker group, and they launched a network of fake AI-powered deep nude generator. I never heard deep nude. Deep fake, I've heard. Deep nude, never. And they were trying to get solicit visitors to the site. The site then had an opportunity to create an image, but to download the image, you had to click on something, and that was information stealing malware. So got you not only for doing this thing, but also got access and information from your device.
So Tammy, you're a woman. What do you, since Violet led by saying this is going to disproportionately affect women, what do you want to weigh in on that?
Gosh, Violet, I don't know if I saw this one that you sent. We had so many going back and forth, but I don't even know if I can opine on it because I didn't see that particular one, but.
All right, you can get a pass. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's so I did see this one actually before Violet had kind of raised it amongst the group, and it was very interesting. I think it's just an old tactic with a new way, right? And so I look at this and really look at other forms of social engineering and luring victims, right, if you will, because that's what it's doing here, right? Try to entice you with something, right? Whether it's in a corporate environment, it could be gift cards, in a personal environment, it could be adult entertainment, right? In this case. And so I really see this kind of just pulling on a common thread that's likely been used before, but really when you look at Fin7, very well organized, very meticulous. They're doing what they've done kind of on a micro level, really at scale. So not shocked at all by any means.
Steve, Fin7, refresh our memory, because I feel like you probably have these buckets of bad actors in different name groups. What are they known for? Like, what's their... You were referencing like you knew. I didn't want to put it on the spot.
Yeah, so, I mean, Fin7's been around, I'd say, or been named since around like 2014, 2015, if you will. The community as a whole is tracking Fin7 back to a Russian criminal advanced persistent threat group, if you will. And so that they've primarily targeted retail, I'd say, for the most part, in the United States, as well as other sectors. But essentially, one of their main tactics is spear phishing. Like, they are the spear fishers, if you will. They've crafted that. They've done a very good job at doing that, and they're a well-organized machine. I think they were sanctioned by the U.S. Department of Justice in 2017, if you will, for impacting a lot of companies with their spear phishing campaigns. So
this is actually
that just came out of nowhere. I was impressed.
That was very, very well done. Well done. That is a good segue to the next story. But before we go there, I think one of the themes that you'll see throughout several of these stories, and I'll try to pepper my comments throughout in a similar way, is that whether it's a corporate or a business situation, or it's getting into that personal cyber realm, what they target for is extortion, blackmail, embarrassment. They try to get you where it hurts, so you'll feel a pressurized situation and feel compelled to send them money. In the personal world, we've seen it where he said a few $1,000s at a time. And of course, as we all know in this audience, in the business world, in the cyber extortion world, we're in professional ransomware. We're talking about millions of dollars. So we really see it everywhere, but this is going to be a common thing going back to this idea of extortion and blackmail, whether it's in the business level or in the personal level. Tammy, when we were talking before during the prep, you sent you sent it twice, your story. Why don't you explain a little bit about what pig butchering is?
Yes. Yeah, there was two different links, but I'm really passionate about corporate, obviously, with ransomware in my position and what to protect, but I'm equally passionate about protecting the human, whether it's in our families or just the emotional component of this, right, Stu? It's exactly what you said. We're all looking for information. Something looks intriguing. We're very tired. We're very burnt out, and we have a multitude of devices, personal, IoT, professional. And so this pig butchering is something that's not new, but this particular incident was where people would go innocently to the Apple store and download an app. And this particular one, it was published on Hacker News on 10/2, but it was a fake trading app. And people get that relations. They think they're logging in. They think that they've, just like you would any application, you're assuming it's safe. It's already been scrutinized by the App Store. It got through that. They've since now taken it down, but people got in, started logging in, giving up information, and then getting that personal relationship and feeling safe about it. And it's called pig butchering because they fatten up the deal, right? They get the trust, and then they get your money, and then they've absconded with a lot of it. So that's just making the pig fatter and then going for it. So it's, again,
what would be the difference? between catfishing and pig butchering? It feels similar.
Yeah, to me, it does seem similar. I don't know that I know the exact nuances of it. This is the first I've known this concept, as you guys have seen. This is not a new type of fake, but it's one of those that I had not heard. And you guys know we have a million acronyms in insurance as well as in security. And so this one particularly just caught my attention because a couple of the publications where it's resurfacing, right? To where it's, I want to say, and you guys have probably seen this, it's the stuff that we're used to seeing is resurfacing. It's not new, but they're using trusted places that we used to know and believe that we're okay to infuse it. And now they're going to use the same attempt that the App Store caught it. They're going to now try to do it through a phishing attempt, back to all your points. So I guess it just goes back to that human vulnerability and there's so much to be aware of, a trusted source, and taking your time to make sure that you think twice before you are, and I'm not worried about the people on this call or the people in our audience, because all of these, we're very diligent about it. Well, I'm just worried more about the person that doesn't study this every day and isn't at high alert, because even skilled people are getting duped. So what about the average human, which work at all the corporations that we protect? So
can I throw an anecdote in?
Yeah.
I had a college intern, and that college intern fell for one of these scams, reached out and asked what to do. Yeah. And I want to point out some of the tactics that were very nuanced psychologically that I think really pushed it over the edge. And one of it was, in the conversations, putting the victim on hold. So giving them this like idea that you were working for them, and or making it, because she said something at the very end of it. She said, I just wanted to get it over with at the end. So they were kind of pulled along on hold, hours on hold with whatever support, trusted support. And at some point, the trust just happened, because why else would she be on hold? Right. And then going through that, I thought that was just eye-opening for me. And I think about this now, because sometimes when you do get scam calls and you hear it, there was one I got, I don't know, months ago that reminded me, because immediately this call line put me on hold. And I was like, this feels exactly like what she went through, having that pause and almost place on that psychological, well, I'm in the queue, so I must be in the queue for something important or trustworthy.
Well, Steve, I mean, you're a passionate guy. How about those romance scams?
This is it, right? Like, it's build up the trust, lure you, like Violet said about catfishing. I think it's like catfishing 2.0, right? Where obviously you're not who you say you are, but in that you build up the rapport and the trust. And usually there is, in many cases, that financial component, right? I always look to see what are the motivators for a lot of the various different things. Some of it could be, just harm in general, or as the kids would say, for lulz or for jokes. But really, it's really like the financial component, right? And so there's the kind of the romance, kind of getting to know you, flirting stage, and then usually there's a request for something. And whether it be financial, for you to go and do something, go somewhere. So this pig butchering, and it's very interesting when, pig butchering came about. I remember looking into it, and I was like, okay, I'm not a butcher by any means, but, I was like, okay, this makes sense, right? Before, I think we all know like what they used to do, fatten them up, kind of get them ready, and then, the guillotine. So it's scary.
I think in a sense too, we see this with multi-level vendor invoice scams or wire transfer fraud, because I've seen sides where you can't really tell where the hack is and which ones are you have to go through logs on like 3 different sides to figure out where the actual bad actor came into the invoice conversation. I feel it's very similar, because sometimes you get into a company, you realize they don't have anything or enough money or capital. Then you go to the next company that they invoice and realize they have a lot more money. So you pick that pig instead.
Well, I think when we see these personal cyber situations where someone is being extorted for some personal situation, or they've been scammed to connect to a marathon level, service call that ends up with them giving away their financial information, et cetera. There was a large piece, I think, that we talked about in an earlier Morning Bytes about a journalist who herself lost like $50,000 in cash to a scammer. And so the common theme there, though, is whether it begins because you're searching for something and the top thing on the search engine results is actually a fraudulent actor, and you're dialing the first return and you're just dialing up the fraudulent actors. You're walking in the door to the bad guy's house and inviting the scam to fall upon you, or because you got swept up in some other type of organized situation that involves asking you for help or giving away your information. They do prey upon the emotions of us, of humans, and it's not really different than what happens in the business world in our cyber insurance ecosystem. But the difference there is that it's more personal. It's hard to quantify. We've seen them where someone thought they were on a dating service with a woman, and they go on a couple of dates, but then on the third date, someone else shows up and starts trying to extort them for things. We've seen where people are caught, illegally downloading adult material, and then the media company that owns the rights come and files a lawsuit against them seeking damages. We've seen that. As you just circle back to your original story, Violet, they prey upon the prurient interests of the internet surfer with this AI nude generator. And
deep nudes. We found out that's the word for it.
That will lure in the unsuspecting person. It always is that emotion. So, and the other thing where I've seen it also is politics, and I have that in my notes also. Fake political ads and fake, news stories to rile up, one side of the political divide or the other are often rife with fraudulent actors. And you're clicking on something that you think is going to, help save the country, but what you're really doing is connecting with a bad actor. So, and that's another area that's hypercharged, with emotion to the individual is politics. So whether it's sex or it's politics, they really go after that area of vulnerability to the average person. And I think that's across all of our stories.
Yeah. Stu, I agree with that. We saw that in COVID too. Whenever there was newsworthy events or national tragedy, it was like, oh, everyone's curious, seeking information, trying to see what's real, what's not real. And then now with voice cloning, with AI and things, it just becomes a lot more tricky. So, we got to get back to the roots of our foundation, but then remember that even things that we didn't, now it's going to just be harder to catch. That's all.
Tammy, that's why we asked you on here, so we could harvest your voice and create a Tammy AI.
Decide to wear a bright color so you can spot me, as if being 6'1" wasn't hard enough.
We didn't mean to match. We just have similar souls, so it just happened.
Green's in right now. That's what I keep hearing.
Tammy, I'm curious on a lot of what we're talking about is that criminal personal level. Do you have an opinion on personal lines? I know you really deal with commercial lines insurance. Do you have a personal cyber opinion?
Oh my, you know what? I come from a personal lines background before I started into professional. So I do, in terms of, I think there's just, in terms of personal lines insurance or just in general, I think because of the proliferation of all of our IoT devices, when you walk into your house and you look at your kids or your nieces and that, we have so many devices that, to me, there used to be a divide. That's where this is personal. Cyber affects all of us on a personal level. So I'm very into, I get people calling me all the time. Hey, what should I do to protect my data? Should I use a service? How do I prevent identity theft? It's more a fact for me as it's not always preventable, but we have to allow, I'm very passionate about them having a resource that they don't have to now reprove medical insurance fraud and prove that they didn't have that surgery while they're trying to go to work. Like we have to, so I think there is a time and place for the resources needed for some of those services on a personal level for sure. And that's where you're seeing some of the corporations offering it as when you're signing up for your health insurance. Hey, we're offering, you didn't see that 5-6 years ago. It was put that attachment, endorsement, low hanging fruit, very small coverage on your renters or on your house, which really doesn't do the whole, it's just almost more problematic than a wholesome policy, but I'm very passionate about it. I think that there's such a need for it. And I think we're going to continue to see more robust products around it.
You didn't see it, but it doesn't mean we weren't trying to sell it, because I was at All Clear ID trying to say employee benefits should include identity fraud back in 2016. We were trying to position this as an employee benefits and not just the credit monitoring piece, which is obviously out there now, where everyone's saying, get through the credit freeze and lock, but also monitor as a benefit. But to me, the identity theft is I used to sit right beside the call center that took all the ID theft cases, and it was amazing that the stories that they would go to. But I would always tell people the real value is that they have worked the system backwards and know actually what numbers to get to. So it's kind of like lawyers, like Stu, there might be someone who's not in cyber might take 20 hours to get something, off the top of your head, right? Yeah. And from experience. And the same way, I really value identity theft call centers or identity theft resources, because I feel like they've worked that process and have had to go backwards into retracing the steps of the bad actor.
Hey, well, kudos for advocating, because I'm telling you, our company has it, and the last company I had it too. It's just one of those, I would have got it anyway, but for people that aren't used to where do I go, I'm kind of lost, I think, as you said, the ID restoration piece is monumental. And that way, if we do get duped, even doing our best, not everyone, can have all the tools, and they don't study it every day like we do. So they need more, what I would call more sleep insurance, right? To feel good about if something happens, someone's going to be there to catch me.
Spoken like a true insurance professional, Tammy. I love it. Well, it is Friday, and so that's our favorite day of the week, of course. So we want to bring rays of sunshine into the world. Steve, bring us some good news. So what story have you been following this week?
Well, back to Violet's original question, some good news coming out of NetD, right? And actually, Stu, I'd be curious your vantage point as well, because I'm sure between the two of us and others, like we got a good feel for the sessions. But I seen, and as one of the co-chairs, I probably should have counted the number of AI related conversations that were just on the talk track. And they were, I think we've all heard AI at a previous Net Diligence, how it applies to various different aspects of the cyber insurance ecosystem. But I will have to say this was probably the most impactful one for me in terms of the actual content. And so it wasn't just like, what is AI, this kind of utopia, this, hey, it's here, ChatGPT, like there were actually some great conversations on how, underwriters are utilizing AI internally and various different aspects of that. And so I thought that was really great and a positive step in the right direction, as well as obviously looking at the risks associated with that as well. So that's a positive note there.
What about the spicy news instead of just like, AI news?
I was not there. I'm with Violet. I have a little bit of FOMO, but I would love to hear what else was happening. We
want to hear like who was dancing on top of the bar. Was it Stu?
Well, I ain't want to got this. You ain't heard nothing from me, but I don't. I go to bed early. You know that.
He does. I can confirm. I was standing by the door. Stu said, "I'm here."
He Irish goodbye.
No, he didn't. He's like, "I'm here for 10 minutes." He did his round and he left within, right, Stu, like 10, 15 minutes.
That's my move. I urge everyone in the audience, feel free to copy it. It's all yours.
My number one pet peeve at the end of conferences is when people ask, and I know, Steve, you've asked me this before, so yes, it was a pet peeve, but it's like, how was this conference for you? What are we measuring in? Are we measuring in like number of ties that we talked to and shook hands with? Are we measuring in like enthusiasm? Because that's, here.
There was a ton of positive energy in Philadelphia. Everyone I spoke to was just feeling good. We spoke to underwriters, we spoke to brokers, we of course spoke to our favorite, the claim professionals, and we spoke to our business partners, of course, and we spoke to DFIR. I saw Steve at the bar. There was a lot of positivity. I made the the reference to the soft market in my post this morning. I think that's a fact. We that was sort of in the tea. Everyone sort of talked about it, even in the claims meetings, the subject came up a bunch. So that'll be interesting to see how the cyclical nature of cyber insurance pans out. I'm just a humble outside observer on that one, so I just sit back and watch. But it is obviously an extremely important part of the conversation, and it was definitely loud part of the conversation in Philadelphia. So that's
we should start. What I'm hearing you say is we should all collectively start a soft market Instagram page filled with positivity and memes.
It's all yours, Violet. There you go. Do it. Make it happen.
All right. And only people that listen to 25 minutes of this actually know who's behind the
right. There you go.
pop-up.
It'll go viral tomorrow.
Wait, does Steve go to your good news? I keep interrupting.
No. You said more good news. I think we had a huge, I think for those of you who've been around for quite a while, you've heard of the various different ransomware threat actor groups and affiliates. And so there was an update from a Lockbit perspective in that 4 additional associates were apprehended, thanks to the great collective work of not only the law enforcement, but folks, as a part of this community as well. And so a developer, 2 affiliates, and a hosting provider, or also known as bulletproof hosting. And so bulletproof hosting is essentially, you can do all your nefarious activity over here. I'm not going to give any logs or respond to law enforcement. And so an administrator for that bulletproof hosting, 2 affiliates, and a developer was apprehended. And for those of you who've enjoyed the Lockbit kind of landing page, if you will, that law enforcement took over. And so they updated that kind of seizure site and with this information. So.
Well, the one thing I noticed, Steve, on that press release that you sent around about the Lockbit story was that they included at the bottom a link to the No More Ransom platform, which is really important. And I think more and more should be sort of broadcast as they did in that press release. You want to talk a little bit about what that is, the No More Ransom platform?
Yeah. So No More Ransom, platform, organization. It's really like a all kind of civil society, government, and industry approach for helping victims and organizations that are experiencing ransomware attacks. Ultimately, what it is collectively a global effort on doing exactly what the name of the organization is, which is hoping that we get to a point of no more ransom. And so this is certain places where you can find like a centralized resource to find decryptors, various different things, but it's more of a centralized repository and an education piece, if you will, on educating victims, educating organizations that want to proactively understand what happens during that. And so there's a lot of information. There's a lot of threat intelligence on there about the various different groups. Like Violet mentioned Fin7. If Fin7 was a part of a ransomware group or family, then they would have their own page here. But yeah, that's kind of the No More Ransom project, if you will, and definitely was really like that. We are trying to get to an approach where we get to maybe a place in society where there is no more ransom. So, all
right, Tammy, what's your final word? Send us off on this Friday afternoon.
I will end on some good news too. It's not NetD, but prior to that, a week before that, I was at the Intelligent Insurer event speaking at their first AI conference. And the reason I bring it up is not to self-promote. It's more to say I was on with Google data scientists, and there was not all insurance people in the room. And I'm looking at the trajectory of all the conferences we've done, you guys, for years and 10 plus years. The right people they were so wildly curious. I was like, wow, I'm sitting with the, Google data scientists. And they were like, we learned so much on insurance. I think the fact that invigorates me is the silos that we used to have, CTOs and CPO, they're all coming together to say, hey, what can I learn from you? How can we walk beside each other? And there's so much to synthesize, but I felt really good energy that was beyond insurance there. And I think that's also going to help all of us.
Awesome. Well, with that, I appreciate everyone tuning in. This has been the fastest 30 minutes in cyber every month. We got to do this. Tune in next month. We'll have more special guests.